Peace, melanated family. I'm Kashama Sankofa. You've tuned in to another Melanated Solutions Media broadcast. We have joining us this evening Dr. Cleo Monago, and also you may notice a fresh face, Brother Uwazi Zamani. If you can say hello to the people.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, Brother Uwazi will be joining the broadcast from here on out, and Brother Duke, as you all know, who is a nationally renowned spoken word artist as well as an educator. He has moved on from the broadcast to bigger and better things. And so we want to wish him, the best of luck on his journey, and welcome Uwazi to the team. Also, Sister Bliss is taking the night off to be with her family tonight. But like you say, we got a treat in tonight because we do have Dr. Cleo Monago in, and he's not always available to join us. And Brother Uwazi, I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. So without any further ado, let's get some quick housekeeping out of the way. If you are watching us on Facebook, go ahead and hit that like button and share, as well as migrate over to YouTube, like, share, and subscribe over there. Also, keep in mind you will be able to join us for face-to-face because we invite the audience to come in and give us questions, comments, whatever you have. Just make sure your background and everything is presentable. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna do something new tonight. Instead of reading out our family feedback, which Brother Duke used to normally do, we got a nice little video reel for you. So if we can roll that family feedback reel, Adam. Okay, so I got to give it to our brother Nadrol Holmes for looking into his crystal ball and giving us that prediction about Amber Geiger. He said, I bet she's going to seek the appeal route, and look at the devil. She's shown up dead. Y'all saw that, right? Uwazi and Cleo.
Yes, I did.
No, I didn't know that until just this moment. I'm not surprised at all, but I didn't know.
All right, well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later then, because that's actually part of our current events. So let's go ahead and look at our current events so we can get into that discussion. All right, so Cleo, you didn't know about Amber Geiger. Uwazi, when did you find out about her seeking the appeal?
I think it started buzzing. I'm on Twitter a lot, so a lot of that came up, a lot of those news stories, and then you shared a news story with us as well. And so I had heard about it.
I think it's definitely a slap in the face to the Jean family after all of that forgiving and hugging and wishing her the best. She basically turns around and say, sorry, not sorry. You know what I'm saying? And like, I shouldn't have to do a day in jail. But hey, that shouldn't surprise nobody. That's why we need to stay on code and, realize that, we got to hold people accountable. We have to punish them actually and stop all this feeling sorry for our open enemy. Now,
Kashama, could I comment on that? May I?
No, you cannot. No, I'm just kidding. Of course. Cleo, what you mean?
I didn't want to interrupt your flow because you look like you was getting ready to move to some other places, but I just want to reiterate the importance of Black people looking at how white supremacy mythology has affected our behavior and looking at it and examining it so we can unlearn our own personal capacity to replicate that behavior. Because the Botham Jean family showcased just how severe our mental state has been compromised by the myth of white supremacy and the myth of Black inferiority. Because don't nobody but us, because we were enslaved and domesticated with a condition we can work out of, would go up and hug, the murderer of a family member. And that Amber is seeking a way to get out of her situation is not surprising one bit. That's not the part that's surprising. The shocking part was that the judge, the young man's younger brother, and father, after crying about how horrible it was that he lost his son, they all wind up hugging her and celebrating the murderer. I just want to underscore the impact of this system on us, so we can break out of the trance. That's all.
Well, I mean, this wasn't in the current events, but Derek Chauvin is seeking an appeal as well, or seeking another trial. Of course, and they're trying to blame that on one of the jurors. I believe you were saying, Uwazi.
Yeah, one of the jurors was at a George Floyd protest, and he also attended a vigil as well for George Floyd. So, the lawyers, the defendants for Derek Chauvin, were saying that is a bias that shouldn't have existed when the jurors were selected. So now they're trying to appeal.
Well, I think the funny thing is, they're trying to get an appeal already, based off of bias, and he hasn't even been sentenced yet. But the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, who is a Black man, mind you, just stated to the media, I believe it was 60 Minutes, that he felt a little bad for Derek Chauvin. And I'm like, well, you felt a little bad for him. He hasn't even been sentenced yet. And then so he turns back around and say he recommends that he gets the maximum sentence, but make it make sense after you just said you felt a little bad for him. They're setting this up, for him to walk with the least amount of punishment.
Well, Kashama, accommodating white people is what we were trained to do while being domesticated for a few hundred years in this country. And the residue of it is still with us. When I hear people talk about slavery is over and reparations are stupid, this kind of behavior shows that the impact of enslavement is alive and well, because it's crazy to watch a man be murdered begging for his mama and feel bad for the murderer. It's the same thing. This story belongs after the Amber Guyver story, because it's the same disorder, anti-Black white supremacy mythology disorder that Black people are suffering. It's insane. No one else would do that. But again, it's not that Black people are defective. It's that Black people were particularly brutalized and domesticated more than any other group in this country. Even Native people know where they came from and still got their own names or access to their family bloodline. They were horribly treated too. I'm not trying to dismiss the horrors. I mean, every time we walk down the street, we're walking on their land. But there's something to say about having some kind of cultural memory, and ours has been tampered with. And that's why we got people feeling bad for white people who are in pain. Oh my God.
Something else it does too, Cleo, because we're going to get into this, but Keith Ellison, legally, he's the most powerful lawyer in Minnesota, right? He's the most powerful, I guess, officer of the court. He's the head attorney general over Minnesota. Someone with this much power is too afraid to seek justice for Black people. Somebody with this much power is trying to accommodate whiteness. That's just ridiculous.
Well, that's how you get that much power, Kashama.
Yeah,
you get that much power because you've mastered accommodating white supremacy. And he's doing what you're supposed to do. There's a person who's in a very powerful position, in quotes, in this country, who will remain nameless right now, who did some of the same old stuff to get in that position. When you accommodate whiteness on certain levels, you get incentivized and rewarded. And so this is not surprising. As a matter of fact, I want the community who's watching to look at the side effect of internalized white supremacy and how we're rewarded and hypnotized into keeping that legacy going. And it's a slap in our own faces.
Yeah, it also speaks to the psychological spaces as well that Black people are in as a result of trying to function under white supremacy. The fact is that we offer all of these redeeming qualities to white people in every aspect, but we can't offer those redeeming qualities to Black people ourselves, because we've been taught that, white people deserve a second chance, But even like just supporting Black restaurants, The second Keisha start burning eggs, that's it for her. I can't support this restaurant or this business or this Black endeavor anymore. And it's because those redeeming qualities amongst us have not been enculturated in us, even though those, if you look at indigenous African societies, tribes on the continent, this is something that they practice. And redemption is something that's common amongst us as a culture continentally. But that, you said it, you hit the nail on the head. There is no connection to our roots. Most people don't even want to be associated with Africa. Most people don't even want to be associated with Blackness, because white supremacy has taught us that Blackness is an irresolvable conflict.
Yep. And just real quickly, another issue that I think is important that we take a look at is that we've been punished and tortured for caring about each other. That's what happened to Move, who the bodies of the children's bones have been found being used by an Ivy League school. I mean, I don't know if you all know about that, but there's been punishment and torture and terrorization for Black people, affirming Black people in society. So we're dealing with some unresolved wounds that has us still relapsing into psychotic behavior, which supporting white supremacy and supporting the murders of Black people is psychotic.
Case in point, as far as us being attacked for having each other's back and for affirming each other, Damon John, I don't know if you know who that is, Cleo, do you? Damon John?
No.
He was the founder of FUBU.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So you know how white America would never forgive Farrakhan. The Farrakhan can never be redeemed. Damon John put up a tweet basically saying that Farrakhan did a good job at DMX's funeral, saying that the speech that Farrakhan gave was a good speech. That's all he said. And he got attacked on Twitter by all types of random white people. And he ended up taking down the tweet and apologizing to them for simply affirming a single speech that Farrakhan gave. LeBron James had to do something similar. Well, he didn't have to do it, but he wasn't affirming another Black person, but he was speaking out against the killers of Ma'Khia Bryant, saying you're next. And he deleted that. And that's what I mean by these so-called powerful people who have money and positions, but yet what good does it do you when you've bowed and scraped or done what you've had to do to get to a certain level? And when does it end? You got to keep apologizing and keep bootlicking and keep buck dancing. I mean, but y'all know about that, right? Though Damon John and the LeBron James tweets.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think because LeBron James is one of the most popular and most powerful, most one of the wealthiest athletes of our time now. And I think going back to that and saying that, like, in order to hold these positions and in order to commandeer the spaces where they think they have power, you have to. There's a level of white accommodation that goes into it. There's a level of oh, well, I didn't mean it like that, or there's a level of oh, well, we should all just stick together and work together. And then historically, it has shown us that white people have never wanted to work with us, have never been interested in us sustaining our livelihoods or developing a healthy self-concept of ourselves. That has never been our relationship. The relationship has always been exploitative. The relationship has always been parasitic. The relationship has always been a means of diminishing all that we have done, all that we have accomplished in the face of adversity, all of those things that we hold dear amongst ourselves, or that we attempt to hold dear without the imposition of white supremacy. And white supremacy comes in and tells you that, oh no, well, you're hateful, you're a racist, this is reverse racism, this is just spreading hate and different things like that. But I think where we have to get to a place of not thinking that this is hate, but this is necessary. This is a necessary violence that we have to ignite within ourselves. And because, again, we are seeking to function successfully under white supremacy. And the conflict with it is that white supremacy is not ethically sound for us as Black people. I feel have always been the most ethical. And my interest is not being, the master of people. My interest is not being the master. So I think it really does. It does say a lot about the people who sell their souls for air conditioning and crumbs, only to be right where a lot of us feel that we are. in terms of being powerless, in terms
But you
of
know what, Uwazi? You know what? At least in my opinion, they're not selling their souls. See, there's an implication in that perspective that they were once conscious and then sold something. They were never conscious. And most Black people are not conscious. And these people act like African Americans. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day about walking down the street with a group of Black people, grown Black people, and when they took the time to even complain about racism, they started whispering. Grown.
yeah.
There was this white, grown people whispering white. Ain't nobody even white around what's up in here for them to offend. So this is African American behavior. And I don't say that to be insulting. I say that for us to look at the side effects of thinking that God is white, that Jesus is white, that their hair is the best kind of hair to have, that they're the most beautiful, or if you look halfway like them, then you half beautiful. I mean, we got some stuff to unlearn that's really sociopathological, and the symptoms, again, of being domesticated. We have been domesticated. So LeBron, or whatever that dude's name with FUBU and everybody else, they are acting like African Americans, but they have a high profile. The assumptions that they're cultured, they're rich, that they must be, since they're rich and cultured, that they had a transformation. Just the opposite. The more you get inside of white supremacy, the more you become contaminated with it. So we should expect exactly what we're getting until we start having Black class. And what I mean by Black class, real quick, Kashama, is the Asians have Asian class, Jews have Jewish class, even white gays have white gay class. We need to have Black class.
I believe they call it Saturday school in the Jewish culture. But yeah. So before we get into the discussion, there's a couple more, current events that did happen. Speaking of, I guess sellouts or people who you were just describing, I'm sure you all are aware of Senator Tim Scott, who gave the rebuttal speech to Joseph Biden's state of whatever address, whatever he did. And what's interesting is that a Texas Democrat who's now resigned, this white guy called Tim Scott an Oreo.
He should have got a raise instead of being fired.
Well, he resigned basically.
Yeah.
But he resigned after taking criticism and heat. But the funny thing is too, Tim Scott is getting heat for saying the same thing Kamala Harris said, as far as this country not being a racist country. So I mean, I don't know if y'all had any thoughts on that, but that I just thought that was a very interesting twist of turn. Like, this is a crazy ass country, y'all. Seriously, man. You got a white guy calling a black guy Oreo for you know what? I just can't. Who said the same thing that Kamala Harris said and is celebrated for you. Hey, whatever. But so we had that, and then of course.
But wait, see, you can't bring up what Obama did. Y'all, that's what I call her Obama. It just reiterates how mentally disoriented we are as a people, because we're treating Kamala, like a sacred cow. And I guess BS, bull, is a cow, so it fits. But the point I'm trying to make is that we did the same thing with Barack Obama. We cannot critique Barack Obama because he's a sacred cow. He's the black one who's really half black, but he's the black one that got in, and that's why we lose. That's why during a black presidency or doing a half black presidency in terms of Obama or Kamala, she's talking about Asians. And how we got to look out for Asians and be concerned about Asians. And she has not spoken with a similar fervor about the experiences of black folks, and her daddy's black. So
it's interesting too that it's funny how you can say that America is not a racist country when weeks before you implemented an anti-Asian hate crime bill that passed that protects Asian communities and protects Asian people from hate crimes, which is funny because it goes back to all the things that were asked in Baltimore when Obama was campaigning, and somebody asked, well, what about the Black community? Well, what about all of these things that are going on in our neighborhoods, like neighborhoods that Obama came from, coming from the South Side of Chicago and different things like that he was well aware of, but hardly spoke to, and actually signed into practice a bill that protected police officers. And so it puts this facade, it's all of these smoke and mirrors that people cling to, just because even with Kamala being an AKA and being married to those sensibilities of Black culture. Same thing with Obama, him wearing Tom Ford suits and singing Al Green songs. That's the smoke, but that's the smoke that they always put up to us. And then every time
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace, every time election comes around, when Black people ask for tangibles, we get TikTok dances and candidates doing the nay-nay and different things like that. But our problem with functioning under white supremacy is we're always seeking some type of reconciliation with these candidates who have a history of never speaking to our material interests, or who have an interest in never speaking to any type of initiative that develops any type of healthy relationship amongst us or anything like that, which is why we have to do it.
And you have to have a real low self-worth, which I think a lot of Black people have been acculturated, ironically, given all the wonderful things that comes from us, and the genius and the brilliance and the swag and the history and stuff that many of you may know. Likely some of you know, who are in this conversation, but we don't know. We still think white ice is colder and fire is hotter and better, and that's an illusion of grandeur. That's about as real as Santa Claus. But we believe it.
Yeah. So, all right. So, the topic of today's live stream, excuse me, y'all, got a little hiccups. The topic of today's live stream is a case against the cops. Now, recently, I didn't watch the Oscars, but I was made aware that Tyler Perry, who has never received an award for any of his movies, mind you, was given an Oscar for some type of humanitarian Oscar. And you can't knock that brother's humanitarian efforts. I mean, Tyler Perry gives. I heard about him paying for people groceries over at the Kroger down in Atlanta. But yeah, he gives. But I bring him up because in his speech, he starts railing against hate. And he says, I refuse to hate someone because they're Black, white, Asian, or a cop. Right. And there's this idea that, that Black people, that we can't broad stroke the cops, or like the cops have to get some type of benefit of the doubt from us. Like we owe the cops something, and we don't owe them a damn thing when they're killing us in these streets. So that's why we had to go ahead and break this thing down this evening with a case against the cops, because you're not going to keep gaslighting Black people. Like we have to love these pigs. Like we have to love these race soldiers. Okay. So let's get it started. We know of several cases that happened right after, or either during or after the verdict. One of them was Dante Wright. Are you familiar with that case, Uwazi and Cleo?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, you want to kind of bring us up?
Yeah, Dante Wright was a young biracial young man murdered in was it Minnesota, I believe, or was it Ohio?
It was Minnesota.
Minnesota, and he was murdered in the car with the girl he was in the young lady that he was in a relationship at the time, and the officer said that she mistook her gun for her taser. She mistook her gun for her taser. Those of you who have seen the pictures and the memes that have circulated know that any officer, they're color coded. So your taser is yellow and your gun is black. And so that's what that's what they're writing with, that she was apparently under a lot of stress. Now, mind you, this cop has, I want to say 23 years experience. And she is also responsible for training cops who were training future cops who wish to enter into the police force in terms of that. So apparently, of course, Black people are, every Black person is rushed to their favorite news outlet to uplift their regularly scheduled shock and disbelief to wonder, well, how can you confuse a taser with the gun. They feel different, this, that, and the third, and all of these other, negotiations and
She didn't confuse nothing.
Yeah.
She's lying. She wanted to shoot him, and she wanted to kill him, and that's the excuse that she's making up. We better stop. We better cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
Black people, we better stop playing, because it's beyond serious now. When they can do this stuff and just make up any old cartoon like excuse for it. Like, y'all, we better wake up and stop entertaining the BS. She did it on purpose.
I don't admit it a lot because it may require more context than I have time to talk about. I used to work in law enforcement, and there's a big difference between a taser and a gun. And even the training that you go through for each device is very, very different. And everybody knows the difference. Like Kashama said, she wanted to take advantage of her liberty to kill Black people, and went on and did it, and used a one-liner to get off the hook. But speaking of taser, what was a young man who was murdered in Atlanta at Wendy's?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Rashard?
His murderer was just rehired.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just found that out today.
And there's Black folks and others, but I'm talking about Black people who have been debating about, well, he did reach for the taser, and he did turn around and try to tase the cop. But see, what they're not understanding is this, and that's why I'm bringing it up, is that this young man was in his car asleep. He wasn't driving. There was no legal reason to have him take a breathalyzer or any of that, because he was not driving.
Right.
He was not putting the society at risk by being a drunk driver. He was taking care of himself and making sure that he was not dangerous by getting some rest and staying. So what happened with this brother is that when he was being harassed, he was like, "What are you doing?" And he did what a lot of Black men have done, because there's an accumulative effect of being harassed, of being bothered, of being messed with, of being accused, of being criminalized. You can't even freaking sleep. And the majority of the people that I've heard who are taking the cops, I'm talking about Black people, who are taking the cops' sides, do not consider all these issues. That's another topic, but a lot of people don't consider Black men's humanity and Black men's capacity to have an accumulative effect that leads to tick-tick-boom syndrome. We never talk about, just living in the shadow of the murders of so many other Black men and Black people could cause a lot of Black men to have tick-tick-boom, like, just going off and say, damn this. And it's not considered, particularly in the media. When we talk about what Black people go through and what Black men go through, what Black men actually witnessed, the living victims of it all, or the survivors, because we are all in that category. Those of us who are still here, given all the risk that we are at, we are survivors. And the
interesting thing about Atlanta, and this is a little bit off topic, but Cleo, since you brought it up, I cannot let this opportunity pass without telling the people who were lining up in the high heels and the in the pink and green, and the brothers who were barbecuing and getting their holes to the poles or booties to the poles. I can't tell you how silly and idiotic we look as a people when Atlanta pretty much saved Joseph Biden's election, but the DA, I can't call her a sister, I just have to call her a Black woman, Fonnie Willis, who was recently elected, was the one who let the cops go, who killed Rashard Brooks, when they were going to be prosecuted by the brother who was the DA. But when it came time to re-elect that brother, Black people were nowhere to be found in Atlanta to vote for that brother. But yet you ran out here to save Joseph Biden, which is ridiculous. And now you got that race soldier back on your force, back in your neighborhoods, ready to kill another one of you.
Yep. Yeah. That's essentially what it was. I remember speaking to Atlanta as well. I remember one of the first agendas that Keisha Lance Bottoms had was to increase the strength of the police force. That was one of her first initiatives. And now here you have Black people with all of these qualms and all of this uneasiness with cops in a predominantly Black city. And here you come increasing police forces, police actions, and police sanctions, and police authoritarianism, and all of those different things. And it's just it's baffling sometimes, but critically thinking about it and looking back and saying like, no, I get it. We've been indoctrinated to think this way. We've been enculturated to think this way. That somehow, even during the rebellions during the summer, when they pulled the brother and sister out of their car from Spelman and Morehouse, brother had on his Morehouse sweatshirt. They pulled him out. They didn't care about that. They flattened the tires. They broke the window. They did what they followed protocol.
That makes them go harder sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to realize that's who they lynch business owners more than anybody. Suits. Yeah. Look at those old lynching pictures.
Hard bottom shoes.
Always dressed up, look like. So yeah, that makes them go harder. Don't tell them I'm a college student. Don't tell them I'm pregnant, sisters. That makes them go harder.
Adam, could you bring up Lana's comment real quick again? Lana said they don't see us as human, and some of us don't see our own value. But I'm gonna stop at the part where where Lana said they don't see us as human. I have to correct that, and I want everybody listening to consider this. The issue is not that they don't see us as human. That's not the issue. The issue is that they feel threatened by us. There's a difference. They feel threatened by us. They feel like we are a powerful people with great capability, that if we all came together and decided to have clarity and were in union with each other, they would be in big trouble. So I want to make sure that you understand that people who's constantly culture appropriating you, constantly trying to look like you and recreate themselves with you as a major influence on the aesthetic, the style, and everything. Nobody replicates or tries to acculturate something they truly feel superior to. So I just want us to reconsider that mantra of they don't see us as human. No, they see us as particularly human. That's why, like the young man who I can't think of his name right now, the military brother who was walking down the street, going through some trauma, who was nude, and they killed and shot him. Because a nude Black man's body is a threat to white people, right, among other threats. So let's understand that we are envied, and we are a threat to another group of people that are severely concerned about seeing as, in contrast, mediocre. So consider that.
Lana says they feel threatened by us. Appreciate that, Doc.
It's true.
I thought it said more. That's why I was trying to read it about the appreciate that, Doc. Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I mean, a lot of times we don't realize that. Like, I grew up with dogs, grew up with a pit bull actually, and at no point did I ever have to try to convince my dog that they were a dog, or that I was human, that they, that they were less than me, or that I had an opposable thumb and the ability to critically think deeper than them. You don't have to convince your dog of that. But so moving forward with another murder. Now this one it's a police murder, but I think this is interesting. The case of Anthony Thompson Jr., the young brother who was killed in the high school bathroom because his girlfriend's white mother, she used the police as her own personal death weapon. Now her name's Regina Perkins. She's all on the media talking about how she feels so guilty and how she regrets calling the cops, and she never wanted him to get killed. But all your actions say otherwise. You called the cops and you told them that he had a gun. She feels as guilty as Amber Geiger does. Yeah, right. Exactly. She did it on purpose. We got to stop letting these people get away with this type of stuff, because she did it on purpose. Simple as that. She killed him just like the cops killed him. Regina Perkins is a murderer, just like the race soldiers who killed Anthony Thomas Jr., who put the bullet in him. They're murderers too. But I mean, what are we saw a lot of this, I think maybe a year before last, where they were talking about the Karens and the Chads. They were giving them these cute names for people who use 911 as their own personal trigger.
Right. I think those terms, like you said, the Karens and the Chad, it lessens the it lessens how severe the violence that that white people act within, the capacity of the violence that they have to be able to act like that, to be able to carry out those actions. There is a system that they can go to that speaks to their every need. If they have a problem with something, specifically Black people, they can go to these systems, they can go to these metrics and use them and leverage them as a way to feel powerful. And people who feel superior or anything. Funny story, I had a girl in my program here at UT tell me, "Oh, you think you're better than everybody." And I told her, I said, "Well, if you think I'm better than you, then it must be true because you seem to think so." She didn't know how to react to that. She walked off, huffed and puffed, put on her little mountain climbing sandals and walked off. But that's what it is. Anytime a Black person is existing, living in their truth, there's some type of negative connotation associated with it. Going back to what Cleo said about Black people walking down the street and talking about white people and then hushing themselves on that or anything like that. There's a level of sensitization that we go through in order to accommodate white people. So we come up with these funny things to reconcile with the trauma that we experience at the hands of people. So we create terms like Karen and Chad to laugh at the fact that these people have the capacity to kill us. The fact that these people have the ability to decide whether or not we get a loan to start a business. They have the capacity to decide what your children learn in education and different things, and they know it. Some of them know it, and some of them subconsciously know it as well. She knew the implications of calling the police on a young black teenager who was at school and saying that he had a gun. There was another thing when two Asian people had called the police on two teenagers sitting in the car, and then the son had to intervene and say, "No, they don't have a gun. Like, what are you talking about?" And so it really just points a finger at how, in some way, exactly how sick we are in order to wrap our minds around just how these things that we create in order to kind of like alleviate some of the symptoms of functioning under white supremacy.
Yeah, the fact that we really need to get serious though, because there's nothing cute about it. Sounds similar with the Black girl found in the woods hanging from a tree. They said it was death by suicide, but they failed to mention that she was dating a white girl and her white friend was involved in an altercation days ago. That came from Tamina Rawls. So, well, back to the cops though. What you were saying, Uwazi, is that, you know, these people have the capacity to do that, but their capacity to have us killed and locked up will be severely limited if we didn't have a complex, organized system, structure, regime that we do, such as the cops, you know, in our communities doing what they do to us. You know, they just don't, it's like the great equalizer for them. You know, if I can't beat you physically, if I can't knock over your lemonade stand and make you get off the sidewalk, right? If I can't win the argument with you, if I can't make you shut up physically because I can't whoop you, right?
Right.
Then I'm gonna call my big brother. Yep. You see, I grew up with big brothers, so I know what that's like.
Same.
You know, that's what they're doing. They're calling their big brother, and it's time for us to squash that, honestly.
Kashama, if you don't mind, I have a critical thinking exercise for us to consider real quickly. And I would like your brother's perspective, and the audience too, of course, can weigh in on this. And I think I know some of the responses are going to be because I've done this before. But the white gay community, you brothers are much younger than me, so you may not know this, but homosexuals in this country, including white homosexuals, and most of the ones who are out and doing things in a public way were white, used to be brutalized in this same society that we're in. Used to be killed, used to lose their jobs if somebody found out. A lot of same-gender loving, well, let me back up, gay and homosexual people um, were murdered in the military. And there were some brutal things that happened to homosexuals in this country up until the late 60s. However, that doesn't happen anymore like that. They were an oppressed group. So how would you explain how an oppressed group is now one of the most powerful groups in the world?
Oh, I think if we're talking about one of the things that I found in research is that white gays, specifically white men, have always sought to consolidate their wealth, power, every material capacity that they have amongst heterosexual white gay men. And if you think about it, what's more powerful than the combined income of two white men, especially two white men seeking to give all of their, quote unquote, give all of their privilege and power to the same system that they claim is oppressing. So even now, under these intersectional guises that are talked about in higher education, and under this like disguise that this is progressive language, such as pronouns and different things like that. And I posted about this a while ago because people still call me Nicholas, which is my government name, and I go by Wazzy. I've been going by Wazzy for 5 years, and I have to jump through hoops to say no, my name is Wazzy. I have to jump through hoops with Black people to say that no, my name is Wazzy. Everybody close to me calls me Wazzy. Even my mama calls me Wazzy because that's what I want to be called. But even with that language and the seepage of all of these different things and how we see things like pronouns being institutionalized in schools and different things like that, it's a way to draw your attention to something else. And these spectacles that white gays have always been fascinated with, these spectacles that they have created, and what they have co-opted from Black, same gender loving and gender nuanced groups around that time, who they rejected, who they stole their revolutionary organization, their methods, and all of those different things. White gays seek to preserve the kinship of white men, specifically white women want a part of that. White, queer, identifying people want a part of it. Queer is a slur. All of this, and we've had deep fellowship about this. Queer, the symbolism, all of their symbology is rooted in their capacity to be able to establish what is useful, to be able to establish
that stuff came later.
Right.
There's some similar things that happened simultaneously, but all that stuff came while the ramping up of power was occurring.
Right.
So, but what you're saying, a lot of what you're saying, I resonate with. But I want to find out from Kashama as well, and anybody else in the audience who want to respond. How did such an oppressed group become so powerful?
Well, hold on. Lowell Denny says white gays, the LGBT community became powerful only in respect to how their agenda conformed to elite power. Gay liberation became gay pride. The demands changed significantly for some. Okay, well, Lowell, it may be good for you to come and join us and maybe break that down too when we do open up for the audience. But Cleo, well, first of all, I'm glad Uwazi did mention the fact that off rip, the LGBT paradigm, or what we would call the gay paradigm back then, was being spearheaded by white men. And and the success that entailed after that, of course, is relevant to them being white men. But also, and this is just because I know the backstory of the political movements and what happened. Also, they were, for lack of a better term, they weren't taking no shit when it came to pushing their agenda, man. They weren't no holds barred. They were, as people say, unapologetic. They weren't making no accommodations for anybody. They were saying, here, queer, get used to it. They were saying that kind of stuff. Not like, we matter or love us. No, they were saying we here, we're gonna be here, and if you don't, give us a piece of our white power, which is basically what they were demanding, because they were demanding money, funding from this government. And Black people scared of reparations.
Thank you, Kashama.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on that.
Well, see, as a young people say, I hear him saying a lot today. That part, ain't that what your young people
Yeah,
say?
that
Yeah.
part, that part.
That part that you just said, Kashama, because that's often missed. And the reason why I mentioned being older than you all, because I saw this resistance with these here. You know, not and just read about it, blah blah blah. You know, I had a job that was in close proximity to West Hollywood in Los Angeles when I used to live there, which is basically where I'm from. And like you said, Kashama, they took no stuff. They weren't having it, and they suffered, and they weren't having suffering anymore, and they organized to the point of getting people in Congress like Bernie Frank. And I don't want to dominate the conversation by going any further, but I want to mention this to show you the kind of thinking that we have to. Well, that's too much. The bottom line is this: they had what I call entitlement consciousness.
Right.
They had unnegotiable entitlement consciousness. And Black people overall, who still calls ourselves N-words, which psychologically interrupts an entitlement consciousness, do not really feel entitled.
Mm-mm.
And I'm telling you one thing right now: if you do something on Main Street against a homosexual, they're not going to forgive you. There will not be no forgiveness mantra or on the front cover of the LA Times and the blah, blah, blah. White gays, well, they call everybody gays now, but a lot of people who watch this probably don't realize that the gay community and the gay context is white, and Black people are marginal in it, and there's a hanger-oners desperately for some white people to love them, but it's a white phenomenon. But we don't feel entitled, and we call it, and we, because we've been trained to believe the myth of our inferiority and the myth of their superiority, and they didn't have to contend with that.
Tamina Rawls asks, is that the reason why they're so divisive when it comes to Blacks in the LGBT community? You mean by divisive, I guess if you do, you mean racist? I don't know. But feel free to come on and join us when we do open it up to the audience. So what Cleo was saying, though, is because I like that what you said about the entitlement mentality. What we have as Black people, too many of us, is a compromise mentality. We want to see everybody's perspective, you know, as opposed to looking from our perspective only when it comes to our lives, at least. Hell, we're not talking about we're not talking about something trivial. We're talking about our lives. So why are we trying to see the other side's perspective when it comes to our lives? Case in point, Ma'Khia Bryant. Too many of us were falling all over ourselves to make excuses for this murderer, this expert marksman, straight up out the military, who had the capacity to shoot that girl anywhere on her body he wanted to. In fact, he demonstrated his expert marksmanship skills when he shot damn near around the girl who she was in the confrontation with. He popped Ma'Khia Bryant 4 times, and she was this close to another sister. And that sister didn't get grazed. So that show you that that pig knew how to shoot. So the whole idea of he had to kill her is just ridiculous. And it's only a compromise mentality that allows us to look at our children, our baby girls, and sit up here and say this grown soldier was justified in murdering her. Have y'all been seeing the same thing or the same narrative?
Oh yeah, it was so many things to justify, like, oh well, you know, she had a knife and this happened, and you know, she was in confrontation, she almost killed another girl, and then come to find out, instead of like delving into the nuances of Ma'Khia's actual life, she was actually defending herself from grown women that have been told to come to the house and, I guess, discipline her. And then the same thing happened. Her father was pathologized and said that, oh, it was a Black man beating down women and different things like that, when that was actually her father defending her, because she had called him to come over there and say, hey, these 2 women, that apparently this has been an ongoing thing, which then goes into what happens to kids in foster care that we don't wish to discuss, or any type of disparities, any type of conversation that talk about the disparities of Black children, the mental health of Black children. People literally did a Simone Biles floor routine in their head to justify this girl being killed. And it's not the first time. They did it with Stephon Clark. They did it with Sandra Bland. They did it with Mike Brown. They did it with Tamir Rice. They did it with Trayvon Martin. They said Trayvon Martin should have just kept walking. They said Tamir Rice shouldn't have been playing in the park with a gun. They said Sandra Bland should have just complied. And these are the same sentences and the same verbiage that white people use in the comment sections on Facebook, Twitter, and any other social media platform when these things happen. And we don't
realize it's time that we start building a case against the cops and stop building cases against ourselves. Simple as that. Simple as that. Build the case against the cops.
But Kashama, which is the reason why I brought up the white gay community, and this is temporary insanity. So I want to make us realize this can change. But we don't feel entitled to what you're talking about, Kashama. There are individuals and subgroups of people that feel like we feel, but most of us and religion and praying to white Jesus, etc., is part of one of the reasons why we think it's sacrilegious to care about Black people. I did a critical thinking and culture affirmation 3-day retreat in Los Angeles with Black CEOs, and it was a Black minister. She's about 60 years old, who on the third day of the class, this is what she said. I ain't making this up. As we went around the room and shared, she said this for the first time, 60 years old, a minister with a church. She said, for the first time in my life, I feel like I can care about Black people and not feel bad about it.
Mm. Hold on 1 second, Cleo. Adam, sure. Can you put the link into the chat? We want to invite you all to come join us for a face-to-face. If you have something to say, questions, comments, if you want to say hey to Uwazi, say welcome. If you want to say, hey, Dr. Cleo, where you been, brother? Something like that. But continue on the story, please, Doc.
No, also, it's just that we need to lobotomize white supremacy mythology out of our psyche, or else we're not going to win.
We need to exercise it.
Yes.
Because that's a demon that is taking over.
Yeah.
You laughing, Uwazi, but it's...
The war on Black people is no joke. And then we're going to have Obama Harris say, this is not a racist country. And as you said earlier, Kashama, never even acknowledge it and staying on Tim, whatever his name is, and never acknowledging that because we're humiliated. Yep. This is what I want us to get outside of and get away from so we can stop being paralyzed. We're humiliated because we were naive enough. Oh, that was a nice word. That was the word I wanted to say.
I was about to say, because
we were naive enough to believe in Obama. Excuse me, Kamala, and I don't want to feel stupid and wrong. So I can't talk about that this woman said the same thing that the guy said who I keep putting down because I didn't have no faith in him. So I can talk about him, but the woman said the same thing.
Right.
And so I'm just reiterating that, inspired by what Kashama said and what you both said to an extent, is that we cannot have the clarity to gain the audacity to fight for ourselves or to fight with each other on the same team is what I mean when I say fight with the same team. If we're questioning our worth with the N-word hovering around our psyche, it just can't work. And then and this is why we have these people. I don't know if this was in your all's intent, particularly you, Kashama, because you were central to the planning for this session. But everybody, we keep talking about these anti-black folks, and I mean, George Floyd's murder caused an international outcry. It was so severe. Him hollering for his mama while he died, and you're gonna have a brother in quotes feeling bad for the monster, for the devil. That's
sick.
That's crazy.
It's a sickness. It is.
That's why
the psychosis.
That white gays are successful because they would never have done that.
Oh, absolutely not. Now this is interesting, Cleo. We were talking, and you're right with what you said about people get into these positions after, bootlicking and doing everything, accommodating whiteness. The crazy thing about Keith Ellison is that he has been criticized by white people for a long time for being Nation of Islam, connected to Nation of Islam and to Farrakhan. So it seems as if now he's on some type of compensatory, trying to make up for all of because when he was first being put over, the case, there were people who had issues with that. There were people who were criticizing him and saying, the attorney general shouldn't get involved, and this is just a race thing, and blah blah blah. And he's NOI, and then it goes deep, man. But so in addition to that, I think another thing that we don't think about, because we talk about the murders, but we still have mass incarceration, which is another form of genocide, because whether we realize it or not, they are taking black men as well as black women these days too, but mostly black men at the ages when they are prime for reproduction. They're taking brothers from the ages of 18 to 30. That's most of your baby making years, pretty much. That's another. What was that?
Kashama, some people think, and maybe it might be too late to have us say this in this conversation, given that we're going to be ending at some point, but some people think that what you just said is true. Mm-hmm. Some people think that the prominence of homosexual black people in the media is another part of that agenda to stop black men from participating in the reproduction of black people and being feminized into wanting each other and not creating other black people.
I think that there is definitely there's an agenda behind the over representation of homosexuality in the media. I don't think it's as simple as getting black men to turn away from women and go to other men. I think that's a very simplistic view, and we don't have enough time to really unpack it.
Yeah, we don't.
We definitely need to, because there is an over representation of LGBTQ.
Oversaturation
in media, and it's often, I'm gonna tell you something too, they're always putting a black face on it.
Yep.
Well,
am I lying?
Nope, you're not.
But see, we don't got time to get
but
that.
I'm talking about hard genocide. I'm talking about this stuff that there's no debate. When you take the men out of a population from the age of 18 to 30, 35 and put them all in cages, you are suppressing that population growth. That's hardcore facts. Now, whatever you want to argue goes into somebody's subconscious through programming and all of that. That's a whole nother conversation. But this is hard genocide, what I'm talking about.
Well, before we end, we have to come up with something happy and light and fun to have our folks revel in, because this is how people in our community, unfortunately, sometimes synthesize the difficult information, is when you come with some other stuff to make them laugh too, because there's a pre-existing state of pain in our community that's repressed or covered up with all kinds of compensatory behaviors. But what's going to be our happy moment? What's going to be our joyful moment?
Well, I got a funny story. I was in the barbershop today, right? And this brother came through selling deodorant. And I think somebody may have bought a couple sticks off him, right? And right before he walked out, he turned to the door, he held it up, said, "Hey, crime pays." It was the whole barbershop cracked up, man. We nobody expected it. They had just finished arguing over sports or whatever. And he came with that funny line, man. It was a heartfelt moment that us brothers felt together. Hey, what can I say?
So he stole the deodorant and sold it. Is that what is that what's happening? Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I'm not sure that's the best kind of happy story.
He didn't get caught.
But Kenneth said something that's not necessarily comedy, but it's a very controversial passage. He said that feminine men, we love our feminine brothers, but there's an overrepresentation of them in film and media. So what we're gonna have to do, y'all, is have a conversation
Well,
about. We already did it once before, but we got to do it
what?
again.
So this is the thing, Cleo. I haven't submitted the marketing materials for the next broadcast. However, I wanted to do something on media buck breaking in the media, which is not necessarily relevant to the sexual buck breaking that is being highlighted in the current film that brother Tariq Nasheed is doing. I'm gonna go and get it too, by the way, because I want to see it. I'm interested in it. I do support brother Tariq Nasheed and things that he do, but I want to do something on another side of buck breaking that happens in the media. And case in point, the Damon John thing, the LeBron James, how these powerful, so-called powerful black men are brought to heel so quickly in front of the whole world. Nick Cannon, another one, to make
Nick
these
Cannon.
statements. So I think we might
He's still on that apology tour too, huh?
be dragging that brother all around the world with that jump. But I think we need to address all of it as far as representation in media, sexuality, as well as the different sides of buck breaking. I think that's what we need to talk about, because everybody the brother over and and sexually violating them, but oh no, we saw Damon John get buck broken this weekend over Twitter for the whole world to see. We saw LeBron James get buck broken for the whole world to see on Twitter. And Poe Nick, they just keep on buck breaking that little fella all over YouTube. So I think we need to address that on the next broadcast. And Dr. Cleo, if you can join us, I would greatly appreciate it.
I'll do my best, Kashama. I'll try to make sure that between now and then I don't get broken.
I don't think that's gonna happen to you, Doc. I don't think you're about to get buck broken. Well, before we leave Uwazi, did you have anything you want to say before we wrap up and head out?
I'm excited. I kind of on a lighter note too. I will be graduating in a few weeks, and I will be closer to you, my brethren. I will be in Philadelphia. You will be in Baltimore, so I'll be a little closer to you all. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to continue the work and continue this.
Now you graduating with your master's, right, Uwazi?
My bachelor's. I went back to school and finished my undergrad. I will be in Philadelphia for my master's.
Okay. Well, congratulations, brother.
And I am the only black male to graduate from the College of Fine Arts here. The only.
Wow.
Okay. Well, congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
And I want to officially welcome you, and look like you're going to be on a journey with us and we see how this goes, and want to make sure that you understand the importance of us working together. Because see, one of the things that we're trying to role model along with educating our community is black men working as a collective. And when our sister Bliss is here, black men and women working as a collective, and showing what it looks like to work together, to care about black people, and to have principal disagreements. Because one thing that we're not trying to do is all agree and have group thing. We disagree on some things, but no matter how much we disagree on some things, we all care about black people, and we love and are concerned about our people, and we are going to make sure that we deal with conflict in principled ways and guide our black people toward understanding the importance of doing that. Ain't about everybody agreeing, but it's having a respectful intentionality, and we definitely have that.
All right. So we thank you all for joining us for yet another Melanated Solutions Media broadcast. Make sure you join us again. What is that, on the 21st? All right. So we'll be back with you. And again, thank you, Uwazi, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Cleo Monago, for joining us. And we'll see y'all in a couple weeks. Peace, family. All our melanoids.
Out. Take care, everyone.